The Boston Celtics just hung banner number 18. Jaylen Brown is the finals MVP. And ladies and gentlemen, we had it all figured out by game 18 of the regular season. That's right. We had the Celtics picked to win it all by game 18. I'm Devin, and you're watching Hoops and Hops on Buffet Sports. Run that intro.
Uh, yeah. Okay, good morning, afternoon, and evening. It's the guy you should believe in. Dropping heat like every season. Underdog like Willie Beeman. Classic like Dom singing. Blasting like bombs ringing.
I am absolutely appalled at the performance from Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving in game 5 of the NBA Finals. Absolutely ridiculous. There's no excuse for it. Luka was right in his post-game interview, but we'll get to that. Let's give our flowers to the Boston Celtics first. So before I go into the rest of the specifics of the game and talk about what I saw, a little bit of future stuff, let's give our flowers to the Celtics as a whole. Jason Tatum, let's start with. He had a mediocre playoffs. He had a couple games here and there that he shined, but for the majority, he was what's the opposite of overwhelming? Underwhelming? Is that a word? If it is, that was Jason Tatum. He played the best game, I'd say, in the playoffs in game 5 and really made a statement. And I was happy for him in that moment. As hard as it was for me to be happy for him, I was, especially on his home floor with the chance to close the game in the NBA Finals. And look, I said it in the last video. In order to close a finals game, you have to win by 20 to win by 3. Well, they had it going and they won big anyway. So congratulations to them and Jason Tatum. Now let's talk about Jaylen Brown, finals MVP. I believe this is the start of a run for him that we're going to see a lot of dominance, possible MVP conversations as these other stars, faces of the league like Curry and Durant and LeBron start to wind down now. It's crazy to say that in their advanced basketball age, they're now starting to wind down. I'm not even sure if they really are, but they're going to get old at some point. Jaylen Brown is only going to go like this. I believe Jaylen Brown is 27. Jason Tatum is 26. We're going to see this duo for a long time. And I'll get to more of the future stuff at the end of the video, but sticking with Jaylen Brown, congratulations. I'm very excited. I had it picked early on that he was my finals MVP. He won Eastern Conference Finals MVP. And I sort of thought with the performance from Jason Tatum in game 5, they might cop out and say, well, Jaylen got the Eastern Conference Finals MVP. We should give Tatum the finals MVP just for image sake. But I'm happy the media, whoever's voting on it, stuck with their guns and went with the guy that may not have had damn near triple doubles, in a couple games, but instead went with the guy who was the most important, the leader on the floor, the crunch time offense, the full-time creator, and was just consistently the whole way through the playoffs the best guy for the Celtics. Joe Mazzulla in an interview at some point during the season said, have you seen the movie, the Spider-Man movie where there's like 20 different Spider-Mans? That's our team. And while that is true, Jaylen Brown is Peter Parker. And he's the strongest. He's the best. He is Spider-Man Prime. So congratulations, flowers to him and the rest of the team as well. They all played a very important role, especially Drew Holiday, but we'll get to him a little bit later towards the end of the video, but I wanted to start there. Let's talk specifics of the game. We'll go through this quickly, obviously, because they obviously won a championship. So what does it really matter? Well, the Celtics won the first 2 minutes of the game. It started off extremely slow. The first 2 minutes, it was 0-2. Drew Holiday was the only scorer in the first 2 minutes here. Jaylen, the Celtics were going to him early and often in the first quarter. He was jacking up a lot of weird threes, and I didn't like the offense for either team. Everyone was very tense. At the end of the day, Drew Holiday, through the first 9 minutes of the game, it was 4-0. And Drew Holiday had scored all the points in the basketball game up until that point. Al Horford finally hits a three and sort of breaks things up and really gets the scoring going. Sorry, Drew Holiday. It was 9 minutes left in the quarter, not 9 minutes total that had elapsed. I really thought that we were going to see Tim Hardaway Jr. earlier in the game. I thought for sure it was going to be during that stretch that I talked about, end of the first, beginning of the second. It did not happen. But Josh Green started the first quarter off and was kind of just the Mavs offense. He hit back-to-back three-pointers to help the Mavs bounce back and keep things just calm. He entered the game, but he just wasn't himself. You could see it the way he was moving. They tried him out early to see what things looked like, but ultimately it didn't amount to anything. The energy crew got onto the floor early in the end of the first quarter. Luka, Exum, Green, Kleba, and PJ were all out there, and I call them the energy group, and they had none. They had zero. They were making terrible decisions. They had just gotten on the floor, but they were they were committing turnovers and making decisions as if they just got done playing 40 minutes. And I understand game four, everyone played a ton of minutes on the Mavs. They're the top end of their rotation, but it's the first quarter. You can't be making these sort of decisions here. Celtics ultimately closed the first quarter with a 9-0 run, and I just sat back like, oh shit, it's over. They're gonna run this wire to wire, and ultimately they did. Coming into the second quarter here, Hauser lights up for 2 threes. He goes 2 for 2. Again, Jaylen Brown was 1 for 5 at this point, taking these weird, dumb, like pull-up three-pointers that just weren't him. He took one that was like logo, and I was like, whoa, what are you doing? Calm down a little bit there. The Mavs were just starting to let the game go. Tatum was getting to the cup, playing really well, and being the player everyone talks about at this point in the game. He had 10.7 assists. The Celtics went small, and I thought this was going to be the moment where the Mavs could make a run, and they did, but ultimately the Celtics responded very quickly. They went small, and the Mavs countered by going bigger. They brought in Gafford. The Celtics were playing bad defense and led to a couple freebies for Gafford. He had 2 dunks, and then PJ and Derek Jones Jr. had 2 layups. So Mavs cut it to 9. They were sort of hanging in there, but as soon as the Celtics respond, you could just see how bad they wanted it. They were playing just dog defense. They wanted it so bad. They were switching fast and trapping early, and that's what you have to do with the Mavs. They played them defensively amazingly, and fortunately for them, they just had all the pieces they needed to be able to do it. There's not a lot of teams in the league that have that luxury. The Timberwolves, I think, could be in the future. I think they had the pieces to do it. Cat, unfortunately, is not as mobile as you'd like him to be on the defensive end. Same thing you could argue for Rudy. So you have a harder time switching fast and trapping early when it came to the Timberwolves, but doesn't matter. The Celtics have the personnel so they can do it. Oh, jeez. Derek White face plants into the court in the second quarter, chips his tooth. The other one's loose, bleeding from the mouth profusely. That just personified how bad the Celtics wanted. They're the first to the floor. They're up by like 10. They're still the first ones to the floor. Didn't take any plays off. I was really surprised and like genuinely proud that they were sleepy all year and throughout some points in the playoffs, but it was all for this moment. And luckily for them, they were able to coast to this point. I don't think that's going to work in the future. Again, we'll talk about that a little bit later. You could see Luka was tired at one point, specifically in the second quarter. Kyrie throws himself into the crowd to save that ball, and Luka doesn't move his feet to go get it. Kyrie literally put his body on the line, is playing his, hustling, and Luka's just watching the ball in the air. And then Jaylen Brown gets the ball, and then Luka again doesn't move his feet and fouls Jaylen at the rim. And so it's just like you could just see. I don't know if it was his knee. I'm sure there's a factor of just being tired from this whole playoff run, but he was just flat. He was just flat. The energy was there for bursts, but not long term throughout the game, I guess. When Luka fouls Jaylen, it's 44-61 in favor of the Celtics. Going into halftime, Jason Tatum had 16, 9, and 4. Jaylen Brown had 15, 5, and 2. And then Peyton Pritchard, baby, again. Just throw it up there. They were talking about it on the broadcast. Dante Exum had a ball that he could have just thrown. Would it? I mean, the chances of it going in, low. Also, I don't even know if he would have been able to get it off with the time on the clock, but you just throw it up there because you don't know what's going to happen. Peyton Pritchard had two of them in this series in the finals, and we got those fun Peyton Pritchard moments that I'm talking about, that you see from those guys that you just for no reason like that do something cool, and we've got those moments, and it was just super cool for Peyton Pritchard, and those like it's literally like 3 seconds where he gets to feel like a superstar and he's chest bumping Jaylen. Oh my gosh, Jason Tatum. It was just sick. It was so cool. It was dope. Those are going to be on the highlight reel forever. They'll be ingrained in my mind, and he is for sure one of my favorite players in the league, undoubtedly now. By halftime, the Celtics are up 64-46. Derrick Jones Jr. was the Mavericks' leading scorer with 10 points. Luka had 9, Kyrie had 5, and then Josh Green had 9 as well. So you could just see the shooting slump was they weren't going to the paint. They weren't living in the paint what they did in game 4. They weren't shooting the ball well, and the Celtics were just shooting the lights out. Yeah, I have it right here. The Celtics shooting slump was over. They're 10 for 21 in the first half from 3. 30 points right there. Half of their points in the half are from 3. So their shooting slump was done. They came out in the third quarter, and the Celtics just mollywopped the Mavs from the get-go. 3 threes after 3 minutes, 25-point lead at that point. I have in here that the Mavs have to get it to 10 going into the fourth quarter. Maybe 15 with 2 minutes end of the third. They were losing the rebounding battle the whole game, 17-26, 9 rebound difference there. And I'm sure if I look through the rest of the series, I'd see the same thing. But Mavs put together a little bit of a run, 7-0 run from Josh Green, keeping them alive, shooting the lights out. Tim Hardaway Jr. enters the game and is a non-factor. The game was over with 3 minutes and 43 seconds to go. Mavs down 18 in the third quarter. Granted, I think there were a couple calls that could have went Dallas's way during that third quarter that might have made things a little bit more interesting. Some no calls. It's the finals. You got to play through it. That's just the truth. You got to play through it. By this time, I'm thinking about who's the finals MVP because I had picked Jaylen Brown the whole way. But watching this game from Jason Tatum, like I said, it was a legacy game. I was like, I don't know now. Are they going to cop out and give it to Jason just for the image? But of course, they stuck to their guns and they went with Jaylen. And I think that's what the fourth quarter came down to, really. The Mavs were just out of energy. They had a little bit, well, they were out of energy, but for the first 2 minutes, they came out with some, and it was extinguished with them having bad fouls and then getting no calls. And by that time, it's just garbage time. And I was like, I just had my fingers crossed that my bets were going to hit. I thought Jason Tatum, like I said, I keep saying it, I really was like, oh man, Jason Tatum's going to win finals MVP. And I think he could have if you were just looking at the stats with the way he filled it up in some of those games. But to me, it was just so clearly Jaylen throughout the entire series. I just didn't know where the media and the people who were voting on it were going to fall, if they were going to bail out or not. But the Celtics hoist the 18th Larry O'Brien trophy. Jaylen Brown at 27 and Jason Tatum at 26 have played 107 playoff games together as a duo in their careers, which is absolutely ridiculous. And there's going to be more. I'm sure that their names will be all over playoff records. I don't know if they'll be on all-time boards. I don't know if they'll get there. I'm sure they'll be somewhere in their top 20s, probably in major statistical categories, I'd imagine. They're going to be their names are going to be all over the playoff all-time list with how many games that they're probably majority of their career going to be in the playoffs. I don't think there's been a season where they haven't been in the playoffs. I don't know if there ever will be. If there is, it'll be a very interesting thing to see, which is a good segue into kind of the future of this team. I'm giving my flowers to them for winning this championship. I think it's going to be short-lived. There's going to be a huge reality check come opening day when they play. Most likely they're going to play on opening night, which is really Christmas for the NBA, which might get stolen by the NFL. But that's pretty much really opening day. You could call now, I guess, the in-season tournament opening day. Either way, there'll be a rude awakening with the East being healthy, and I think there's going to be some shakeup. I would look for the Knicks to add somebody. The Sixers are going to have a ton of flexibility this summer. Um, the Pacers could only get better. Pascal's going to be back. There's going to be some movement. There's going to be some player movement, and there's going to be a reality check with healthiness. Now, of course, the East has a record of obviously from this year not being able to stay healthy. I'm looking at you, Joel Embiid. So who knows? But I think they'll return to the championship next year. Let me preface that. I think they will be the team to make it out of the East, but I don't think they're going to win the championship. If they would have faced the Nuggets in this final series, I think it would be a good series, but I think the Nuggets would have went back to back and sort of began the dynasty. But hey, the Nuggets ran into the Timberwolves, who were built to beat them, and then the Timberwolves ran into Dallas, and Dallas wasn't necessarily built to beat them, but they won. They were better in the fourth quarter. They were a more experienced team, and they pulled it out. So that's the way the dice fall sometimes. But I don't think it's going to be the same way next year. The Nuggets are probably going to make some moves in the offseason. Aaron Gordon's going to take on a larger role on the offense. If Michael Porter Jr. is still there, his role will be reduced. I think he's going to get moved ultimately. So a lot of interesting stuff on that end. The other part of this is the Celtics themselves. Obviously, the second apron is now a factor, and I don't see a world where they're able to keep all these guys, especially when we're talking about Drew Holiday. He's making a ton of money. I mean, the big four they're all making a ton of money, but for what KCP provided you in the playoffs, ultimately, because he did get hurt and we knew he had health issues just in general coming into the season. How much he got paid, he's not going to be a long-term thing on the Celtics unless he's willing to take a pay cut to, win championships. Jaylen and Jason are locked up for the foreseeable future. And Jason, I'm sure will, with how fast the salary cap is growing, will sign another extension and things will be fine there. And those two will stay together. Drew Holiday, I think, is close to retirement. I want to say he's 33. He's probably close to retirement. He's got 2 chips now. Oddly enough, he was the catalyst here. He has a weird legacy, and I don't know what his legacy is going forward because he was kind of a good player, a great defender on a lot of bad teams or even playoff teams. And then all of a sudden, he's like one of, if not the best perimeter defenders in the league and the catalyst for championships. He goes to the Bucks, they win. He goes to the Celtics, they win. He played huge for the Bucks and he played huge for the Celtics. He won them game 2 with that 26. And he's such a weapon in the regular season with how he's able to just clamp up guys. Obviously, in the playoffs, he's even more of a weapon. He's even more important there. I don't think he's gonna take a pay cut coming off of this because he looks to be that catalyst guy, that third, fourth guy, depending on what your team makeup looks like, that just brings it all together, is glue that you can stick out there and literally have him go guard 1 through 4 probably, and then he's still going to give you at minimum 12, and some nights he'll give you 30. So I'm interested to see. I don't know what his legacy is going to be. It's kind of odd. I don't know. Like, is he I don't know where he's going to fall all time. Is he going to fall anywhere all time? Is he just going to be one of those guys that we forget about, that a lot of people forget about, but is like, oh, that guy was really good. Um, so really interesting. I don't know, and I don't know what his future is. Does he take less money to stay with the Celtics and try and run up some championships, or does he move on to possibly, in the next couple of years when he hits free agency, a Denver, another contender, whoever it is at that point? A lot of movement can happen in the next couple of years. A Minnesota, like, does he go to the West? Does he go back to the West? I don't know. The other one here is Al Horford. If I was Al Horford, I would retire. He's 38. This is his second stint with the Celtics. He's been waiting for a championship. There's no guarantees that you're going to go back to back. And why wouldn't you want to go out on top? He made 10 million this year. He's going to make 9 next year. I guess you could play next year out and try and repeat, but doesn't it feel a little bit sweeter if you end it on a championship and you come back as like a player coach or something like that next year? I don't know. They have a role for you on the bench, something like that. I don't know. But to me, doesn't it just feel better to go out on top? That's how I would want to go out, but I'm not Al Horford and I'm not a NBA basketball player. I'm sitting here in my room talking to 3 people. And then, there's the axillary guys that it's cool to see them get a chip. Derek White, a great story, coming out of Boulder for college, and then he makes it to the NBA. He plays for Pop in San Antonio. They end up cutting him loose. They don't believe in him, you could say. And the Spurs just straight up missed on him. He's turned into just a revelation and a fantastic shooter and really found a home in Boston. And I think he's going to be there. So it's cool to see him get one. Obviously, KCP, a really great player that I think would go by the wayside if he never won a championship. I think he'll be remembered a lot like Bill Walton, where you look at him and you say, man, if he was healthy his whole career, he could have been a real problem. And for the stretches we did get to see him be healthy in multiple different locations for small stretches, but specifically in Boston, gosh, he could have been the guy on a couple different teams. I think there'll be a similar, he'll be looked at in a similar light as Bill Walton. So happy for KCP. Obviously, Peyton Pritchard gets one. That's sick. And those are kind of the guys in the forefront of my mind. Sam Hauser, he'll be a shooter forever that will kind of, he'll be there, I guess. We'll probably bring him up the longer he's in the league of like archetypes for shooters. There it is. Going forward, I don't think the Celtics are going to repeat. I'm sure Jason and Jaylen will get another one at some point in their careers. I don't have any doubts that they'll win another one, but obviously the team makeup won't be this, and it won't be, I think, in the next 3 years. Maybe I'm wrong and they go back to back. I don't think they will, though. So let me know down in the comments. Tell me what you thought of this finals. Was it that Luka didn't play up to standards and that's why the Boston Celtics won, or were the Boston Celtics just simply too much and they were too good and they played well and they deservedly won an NBA championship? That's the first thing I want to see in the comments. The second thing I want to see in the comments is who you think should have won Finals MVP. I was Jaylen Brown from the get-go, but wavered a little bit at the end. Thankfully, he did win it. So let me know who you think should have won Finals MVP. Congratulations to the Celtics for hoisting the 18th banner. They are the most winning team in basketball. And congratulations to Jaylen Brown for banner number 18, or for Finals MVP. Luka, we'll see you next year. The Mavs are an interesting one on the other side of this. We're going to talk more about them in another video and sort of the other playoff teams that were important this year. We're going to wrap them all up into one video, but I wanted to focus on the Celtics, being that they won a championship. I'm Devin, and you're watching Hoops and Hops on Buffet Sports. If you want to see more of us, you can catch us on YouTube, TikTok, and Instagram at buffet.sports. We post every day, if not twice a day. We're going through some schedule changes right now, so you're going to see short form every day, and we're figuring out our long form schedule, but there's going to be videos nonetheless. We've got a library of over 300 videos, so go eat it up, guys. There's tons of content. We love you. Ciao.